I hope you had a good morning. All right. My name is Belinda Malachi, and I will be presenting today's lesson on transport systems in plants. Okay, before we begin the webinar, please make sure your audio is on and your speaker volume is turned up. Okay. Please note that you are muted when joining the session, so please don't try to say anything to me. I will not hear it. However, if you've got any questions, please type them on the question box, okay, and then I'll attend to them as soon as possible. Again, you can download the presentation or the notes on the handout section on the webinar. Okay, the notes are already uploaded on that section. Please make sure you download them for future use. Please do ask questions if you do not understand something or if I was not clear in explaining something. All right. If I did not get to your questions, or if you did not get to write any questions on the question box, please send me an email on academics@impact.co.za and I will respond as soon as possible. Okay, and then you can visit the Impact YouTube channel later on for a recording of the session. All right, guys, we are gonna start now. I hope I'm able to impart some knowledge on this section of your life sciences, and I hope you can take it and use it to pass your exams. All right. Okay, let me just check something. Can you guys please just raise your hands if you can hear me? Okay. Okay, I see everyone's hands are up. All right. Okay, you can put them down for me, please. Thank you. Right, let's get started. Okay, so in today's lesson, we will be looking at movement of water from the roots to the aerial parts of the plant. By aerial, I mean the parts above the ground. We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at evaporation of water from the leaves. We're going to be looking at the movement of sugars that are produced via photosynthesis on the leaves, from the leaves to other parts of the plant where it's needed. We will also be looking at the forces at play, okay, the forces that help water move from the roots all the way up until the leaves of the plants. We will also be looking at how leaves reduce water loss to a minimum. Throughout that evaporation, we'll be looking at it as well, and we'll be looking at the vascular system. Okay, right. Okay, can everyone still hear me? Please raise your hands once again if you can hear me. Before I start, can you please raise your hands if you can hear me before I begin with the session? Okay, let's just wait for all the attendees to settle. Okay, so just like humans and animals need water and food to stay alive, plants need water and food to stay alive as well. Okay, So let's get back to history a bit. So the ancestors of plants, known as the green algae, were completely absorbed in water. So they lived inside water, and because of that, they were able to get a continuous supply of water from the water. Okay, so then in order for the plants or the green algae to move to land, evolution needed to take place. Okay, because they needed to develop some sort of transport system that will be able to get the water from the roots up to the leaves. Okay, so we needed evolution to take place before they can move to land. Okay, so this means that the plants needed to solve a couple of questions. How will their resources be transported throughout the plant, and how will they be able to retain water if they are not inside water? If they are on land, how will they be able to retain water? So to solve that problem, there was a development of vascular tissue known as the xylem, okay, which is the tissue responsible for the transportation of water. Okay, you can see I've got a water tank there that represents our xylem. So it's the tissue that is responsible for taking water from the roots all the way to the leaves and other plants where the water is needed. Okay, and then another form of tissue that developed is known as the phloem, which is the tissue responsible for taking water from the leaves. Remember, sugars, sorry, not water, sugars. Sugars are produced on the leaves via photosynthesis. I know in previous grades you have done the process of photosynthesis. So what happens with those sugars is that they need to be transported to other parts of the plant. Okay, so then the phloem will then transport the sugars from the leaves all the way to the other parts of the plant where it's needed. Okay, right. Right. So water is taken up by plants from the roots to the leaves. Okay, and of that water, only 5% of that water that was absorbed by the roots is needed for growth, okay, and other things on the plant. But the other 95% will be evaporated into the air. And that process is known as transpiration. Okay, so only 5% of the water that is absorbed by the roots from the soil is needed for growth. The 95% will then be evaporated into the air, okay, by a process known as transpiration. Okay, so the evaporation creates suction forces. I don't know if you guys know what suction forces are. Okay, it creates a suction force that pulls the water up from the roots into the leaves, and then from the leaves they will escape or evaporate into the air via or through the stomata, and that is known as the stomatal transpiration, or it can evaporate through the cuticle, known as the cuticular transpiration. But there's very small amounts. This happens in very small amounts. So we're not going to be looking into that in this session. We're only going to be looking at the stomatal transpiration. All right. Okay, please do send me questions. If something is not clear, and then I'll get back to it as soon as possible. Okay, but remember to please send questions that are relevant to this content. Okay, please do not send any questions that are not relevant or that are not related to this content. Okay, I see your questions. Thank you for sending the questions. I will answer them after this webinar session. Okay. So we said that evaporation happens on the leaf of the plant through the stomata, okay, or the stoma. Singular form for stomata is the stoma. So basically, you guys have done stomata, the organ, the leaf, if I'm not mistaken. You've already gone through the leaf, okay, but in the leaf we've got pores or openings known as the stomata that open up to let light in during photosynthesis, okay, and not only that, but the pores also open up to release water vapor, okay, to release the water vapor. So what happens is the water moves into the gut cells by osmosis, and then it causes them to expand, and then the expansion will cause the cells to be swollen, and from there it's going to open up, and then the water will diffuse outside the leaves into the atmosphere. Okay, this is a 24-hour cycle, but the stomata normally opens during the day because that's when photosynthesis takes place, or mainly the light dependent part of photosynthesis. Remember, for photosynthesis to occur, we need light, okay? We need the sunlight. So the stomata is mainly open during the day, because that's when a lot of light is taken in for photosynthesis. So water evaporates daily from plants. I know there is plants that lose about 151,000 liters of water through transpiration, because transpiration is a breathing process. So just like we breathe and take out water vapor when we breathe, plants release water as well as they breathe. It's just that the process of breathing in plants is referred to transpiration and not breathing per se. Okay, but when we breathe, we release water droplets, or not water droplets, but water vapor. So plants also release that water every time they breathe. Okay, it's just that it's not going to be visible. You won't see it. It's an invisible process. So in order for you to see the amount of water that is being lost, you'll have to have some sort of experiment lost to the minimum. Although it's a lot of water that's being lost, the leaves are structurally suited, or they are well adapted to keep it to a minimum. Okay, they do so because they have a small surface area. Okay, they are small, and that limits the surface area for evaporation. Leaves are also arranged in such a way that the leaves, sorry, that's supposed to be leaves and not eaves, the leaves higher up cast a shadow over the lower leaves. So I don't know, you've seen trees before. So with the trees, I cannot demonstrate it on the webinar, but I'm gonna try. You'll have a leaf up there and another leaf up down there, and leaves and leaves. So the leaves that are up, or the leaves that are on top, will cast a shadow onto the other leaves that are below. Okay, and that decreases the evaporation process. Okay, so the more cooler it is, the lesser the water that will be taken out by the plant. Okay. Okay, again, leaves are succulent, and the mesophyll cell contain colloids that retain the water. Okay, and then the mesophyll cells are also densely packed to decrease the internal evaporation surfaces. Okay, and then we have learned that there is a cuticle, a thick cuticle or a waxy layer that covers the liver that is waterproof and limits evaporation to a great extent. Okay, so with life sciences, we do not only look at a part or an organ, but we also look at its structural suitability to perform the function that it needs to perform. Okay, just like you will not take a darker truck or a darker van into Formula One. Those of you who watch Formula One, you cannot take a Ford Ranger into a Formula One race because it's not suited for racing. Okay, and you cannot there's a lot of examples. Okay, so a structure or an organ needs to be suitable. It needs to be its structure needs to allow it to perform its functions. So all this about the leaves of the plants make it well suited to limit the water loss. Okay, otherwise, if the plants continue to lose more water than usual, it will end up dying. All right, so then the leaves structure covers us in that regard. Okay, if you've got any questions with regards to this slide, please do type them. Okay, and we will answer them. All right, so there is certain factors in the environment that affects the rate of transpiration. So that affects how quickly a plant transpires or how slowly the plant transpires. So there's a couple of environmental factors that affect the rate of transpiration. Okay, the first one that we're going to be looking at is humidity, which you find in that blue block over there. So humidity is the amount of water vapor that is in the atmosphere. Okay, so an increase in the humidity decreases the rate of transpiration. How does that happen? So as I have explained, humidity is the amount of water vapor that is found in the atmosphere. So look at it this way. If the atmosphere is saturated, or if the atmosphere has lots of water vapor, then there is no potential or there is no need for it to get more water vapor from the plant. Okay, so if the atmosphere is already saturated, there is not going to be any need for more water to evaporate into the air. Okay, take it as though there is no space for the water vapor to be in. So increasing the humidity decreases the rate of transpiration because the atmosphere will be so saturated with water vapor already. Okay, and then we're going to be looking at temperature. Temperature is one of the factors that affect the rate of transpiration, but an increase in temperature increases the rate of transpiration, and a decrease in temperature decreases the rate of transpiration. Okay, how does that happen? Okay, so when you cool down, when your body tries to cool itself down, it will start releasing some sort of water vapor from your system. So that happens, or that takes place in plants as well. when it's hot or when it's warm, there is a need for the plant to cool down. And when it cools down, it releases some water vapor. So this means the warmer the temperature, the more the need for the plant to cool down. Okay, and as the plant cools down, there's going to be more water vapor that will be evaporated into the air. So this means an increase in temperature will increase the rate of transpiration. Okay, also this temperature and the humidity are also related. Okay, if the temperature is warm, the humidity or the water vapor in the atmosphere will decrease. And remember, humidity and transpiration are indirectly proportional. What do I mean by that? When you increase humidity, transpiration will decrease. So if temperature decreases humidity, it will increase transpiration because they are indirectly proportional. When one increases, the other one decreases. When one decreases, the other one increases. Okay. The next factor that we're going to be looking at is light intensity. Okay, light intensity is one of the environmental factors that affect the rate of transpiration. How so? Okay, remember I've mentioned that during photosynthesis, we need light. We need light energy for the process to take place. Okay, so this means that if you increase the light intensity, the stomata, which has the chlorophyll. I don't know if you remember chlorophyll from previous grades. Remember, the chlorophyll is that green pigment that traps sunlight for photosynthesis. That chlorophyll is found in the stomata or in the stoma of the leaves. So if there is more light, the stomata is going to open often. Okay, and when the stomata opens, the water vapor will also escape or it will evaporate into the atmosphere. So an increase in light intensity will increase the rate of transpiration. Okay, because the stomata is going to be hard at work. It's going to be open most of the time, and every time it opens, water vapor will go out. Okay, lastly, the other factor that affects the rate of transpiration is wind. Okay, so when water evaporates, what happens is a layer is formed on the plant that prevents further evaporation from taking place. So when water evaporates, I'm going to repeat that. When water evaporates, it creates a layer on the plant, on the leaf of the plant, that prevents further evaporation from taking place. Okay, so what happens when there is wind is that the wind blows over that layer, okay, which will then cause an increase in the rate of transpiration. Right. If you'd like me to repeat what I just said, because this is very important, can I please see a raise of hands? If you'd like me to repeat what I just said now, or keep your hands down. If you've heard me. Okay, I see some hands there. All right. Okay, let's go through this again. Okay. So we have learned in the previous slides that transpiration is the evaporation of water from the leaves of the plants. Okay, so there's certain environmental factors that increases or that determines how fast or how slow transpiration will take place. The factors are temperature, light intensity, wind, and humidity. Okay, let's start with temperature. I'm going to start from the left to the right. So temperature we know is how hot or cold it is. So an increase in temperature increases the rate of transpiration. How so? If it is warm in the atmosphere, there is a need for the plant to cool down, to try and cool itself down. Okay, as it cools itself down, water vapor will be released into the atmosphere. Okay, just like when we cool ourselves down, when our bodies try to cool themselves down, they sweat, they release some water. Okay, you will also look at this next year in grade 11 when you do cellular respiration. Okay, you'll have an idea of how, but you'll be looking, how the organisms, I think it's animals and plants, how they release water through the process of cellular respiration. Okay, so when the temperature is warm, there is a need for the plant to cool itself down, and as it cools itself down, there will be evaporation, there will be water vapor that's released. So this means the more warm the atmosphere, the more water vapor will be taken out, and then the more the rate of transpiration. So temperature increases the rate of transpiration. An increase in temperature increases the rate of transpiration. Okay, let's go to light intensity. Okay, let's go back to photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, okay, water is absorbed again from the roots of a plant. Carbon dioxide is taken from the atmosphere. Okay, now we need energy. We need energy to form these sugars. So the energies that the plant uses to take the water and the carbon dioxide and change it into sugars is found from sunlight. Okay, but two things are being absorbed by the plant from the atmosphere: light and carbon dioxide. But in this case, we're only going to be looking at light. So during photosynthesis, there is a need for light because it contains the energy that we need to take the carbon dioxide and the water and change it into sugars. So this means the more the light, right, the more the stomata will open. Okay, and the more the stomata opens, the more water vapor that's going to be let out. Okay, and with an increase of water vapor or with an increase of evaporation, we get an increase of transpiration. Well, that's the same thing. Okay, we'll get back to wind lastly. Humidity. Just to explain again, humidity is the saturation, or it's the amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. Okay, so an increase in humidity decreases the rate of transpiration. How so? If there is water vapor, if there's a saturation of water vapor in the atmosphere, there is not going to be a need for the plant to transpire. Okay, so this means an increase in humidity will decrease the rate of transpiration because it's going to be saturated already. The atmosphere will be saturated already with water vapor. Okay, wind. When evaporation takes place, it forms a layer on the leaf that prevents evaporation, further evaporation. But if there is a lot of wind in the atmosphere, the wind will break or it will blow away that layer that was formed, okay, which will then increase the rate of transpiration. Okay, I hope I have cleared it out for you guys. If it's not clear, please do write it in the question box. If it's still not clear, please do write it in the question box and I'll get back to it after the session. Okay, then we have another process that takes place known as guttation. Okay, now this is the loss of water in liquid form from the leaves of plant. So we can already see there's a difference between guttation and transpiration in that with transpiration, water is released in the form of vapor, okay, in the form of gas. But with guttation, water is released in liquid form from the leaves of the plants. Okay, but this happens in very specific environmental conditions. It usually happens at night. Okay, and we've seen the transpiration happens during the day because the stomata only opens during the day. Okay, so guttation normally takes place at night, and then guttation happens when the humidity is high. We can already see that's another difference from transpiration, okay, which decreases when humidity increases. Okay, guttation also happens when environmental temperature is low. Another difference from transpiration, which is increased by a rise in temperature. So guttation happens when our temperatures are low, or it increases with low temperatures. Okay, so sometimes you can see the droplets in the early mornings when you wake up from the plants. If you haven't seen it, please just go and observe it in the mornings when you wake up. Right. I hope you guys are not falling asleep there. Okay. Can everyone still hear me? Is everyone still awake? Okay. Okay, I see somebody wants me to explain the wind part. Okay, not clear, struggling to understand it, ma'am. Okay, Jeanette, can you please specify which part you want help with? Let's just specify for me which part you're struggling to understand, and I'll try to explain it again after this session. Okay, please just specify for me. Right, now it all boils down to this. Okay, all this trouble boils down to this. How does the water travel from the soil to the leaves? Okay, remember, we need water for photosynthesis. Photosynthesis only happens where? On the leaves. Right. So this means somehow it needs to travel from the soil, from the roots to the leaves. Okay, so now we are going to be looking at how that happens. How does water travel from the roots to the leaves where it's needed, and other parts of the plant? Okay, not the plant, everywhere on the plant, water is needed everywhere on the plant. but I'm mainly referring to the leaves because you are familiar with photosynthesis, and it's just easier explaining with the use of an example that you are used to. Okay, so water enters the root hairs of the epidermis of roots by osmosis. Okay, now let's interact a bit. Do you guys remember what osmosis is? Okay, whoever knows what osmosis is, can you please type it in the question box? Osmosis. Okay, Matthew, I saw your question. I'll answer that later. Okay, I'm waiting for your answers on what osmosis is. Okay, Melanie, I see your question. I'll get back to it. Okay, so water enters the roots of the epidermis of the roots by osmosis. You have done tissues last term, plant tissue in particular, and you've learned that one of the tissues of a plant is the epidermis. Okay, I'm not gonna go into detail. Okay, you can just please go back and revise it. It will do you good for your June exam also, so it's not gonna be a complete waste of time. Water enters the root hairs of the epidermis. I mean the epidermis of roots by osmosis. Okay, once it enters the root hair, it creates pressure, but we're gonna be looking at that next. It creates pressure. Okay, it may follow one of two paths. Okay, the first path is known as the apoplastic route, and the second path is known as the symplastic route. Okay, so apoplastic, simply put, means that it travels within the intercellular spaces of the cells. It doesn't penetrate the cell, it doesn't go into the cell, but it travels in the intercellular spaces. So it travels in between. Yes, that's the best way to put it. It travels in between the cells and does not go into the cells, but in between the cells. Okay, symplastic route means it travels, so it gets into this, it penetrates the cells. Okay, so once water enters the root hair, by taking these roots, the water potential of the cells increase. So pressure is created and the water potential of the cells increase. Okay, and the process continues to form a constant stream of water that is forced into the cortex by the root pressure. It's, okay, forced into the cortex by the root pressure. And then as soon as the water reaches the endodermis, okay, there we've got tissues again, so it might be necessary for you to revise your tissues again so you can visualize what I'm talking about here. The bands of Caspary direct the passage of water into the xylem, which is the tissue that is responsible for the actual transportation of the water. It enters into the xylem, And then as soon as it reaches the xylem, it moves upwards to the aerial part of the plant. Remember, the aerial part just means just a fancy word for parts of the plant that are above the ground, since the roots are below the ground. So the aerial parts will be the part of the plant that is above the ground. So as soon as it reaches the xylem, it is transported where needed. Okay, so let's just go over that again. Water enters the root hairs through by the process of osmosis, and it follows one of two paths. From there, the water potential of the parenchyma cells will increase. Okay, and then this process will then form a constant stream of water, okay, which will be forced into the cortex. Okay. And then as soon as it reaches the endodermis, the bands of Caspary will direct the passage of water into the xylem, which will take it to the leaves for photosynthesis or to other parts of the plant where it's needed. All right. Okay, I know they like asking a lot of times they like asking this in your essay questions in your section C. So please make sure that you understand it. Okay. It's one of the subtopics of an essay question. If there is time next week, I will help you with answering essay questions. Okay. This one in particular because examiners like it a lot, the uptake of water and mineral salt. Okay, but it will have other subtopics also that will help you get points, because this will not be enough for 20 marks. Okay, so it'll be a subtopic amongst other topics on the essay question. Okay, please remember to type in your questions if you've got questions. Okay, I see you guys have answered my osmosis question. Tato Ngakani said osmosis is the movement of a solvent from a high to a low water potential. Salome Enzel, that's right. From a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. Okay, that's right. Thank you, guys. So looking at this, in the soil, the soil is saturated with water and mineral salt, where else the cell sap is low. The water potential of the cell sap is low. So because of that fact, water from the soil will want to move from the soil with a high water potential to the cell sap with a low water potential. Okay, let me repeat that again. The soil has a high water potential. It's saturated with water and mineral salt. And the cell sap has a low water potential. So this means that the water will move from the high concentrated soil to the cell sap, which was previously, which had a low water potential previously. Okay. Let's just look at the time. Okay. Okay, So as I've mentioned, there are forces that are responsible for the upward movement of water. Okay, we know, for those of you who do physical sciences, but I know you have done gravity before in lower grades, there is gravity, and it is a downward force that always forces things downwards. Okay, and water is an upward movement. Okay, this does not stop gravity from trying to take it down. Okay, so, but it's successful in any case. And what makes it possible are the forces that are created. Okay, one of the forces is the transpirational pull. We've learned in the first slides that transpirational pull is created by transpiration. It's created by transpiration, which is increased by those factors that we talk about: temperature, humidity, water vapor, and wind. Okay, so one of the forces would be the transpirational pull created by transpiration. Another force would be the root pressure. Okay, remember, when water diffuses into the root, it creates pressure. Okay, it creates root pressure. And then the transpirational pull will force or will draw the water upwards. Okay, but still, gravity will want to bring it down. Okay, that's where the capillarity comes into place. So capillarity is the ability of the water molecules to stick to one another. Okay, so a cohesion will form or will be created amongst the water molecules and the plant. Okay, this cohesion or this unity within the water vapor and the plants will help it or make it strong enough to be pushed, okay, not to be broken apart. It will make it strong enough to be pushed all the way up until the highest part of the plant. Okay, so these forces help each other. Okay, it's all the way from the root pressure to the transpirational pull and to the capillarity, which makes sure that the plant gets to where it needs to go. So that unity amongst the water molecules will overcome gravity. Okay. Okay, let's look at the time. Okay. Can I see hands? If you want me to explain this again. If you want me to explain what I just said again, can you please raise your hand? Okay. Okay, there's a couple of people that want me to explain this again. Okay, can you please put your hands down? Please put your hands down. Thank you. I'll explain this again. So, as I've said, as much as this is an upward movement, gravity will always want to bring it down. Okay, so this means we need some forces, we need some pushes, we need some pull, and we need some sort of strength for the water to overcome gravity and get all the way up to the leaves. Okay, so basically, when water diffuses into the root, it will create some sort of pressure. Okay, and then the transpirational pull will draw it upwards. Okay, because the plant needs to breathe, and when it needs to breathe, it needs to pull the water vapor from the roots. Okay, so the transpirational pull will pull the water upwards, and then the capillarity, which is the cohesion of the water molecules, as well as the plant, will make sure the water reaches the highest part of the plant by overcoming gravity. Okay. There is a saying that says, together we shall stand, divided we shall fall. So that's exactly that. So they come together, they unite together with the plants to overcome gravity. Okay, because at the end of the day, they need to reach the plant, photosynthesize, and give us some starch because we cannot create it by ourselves. Okay. So as I have explained, organs need to be well suited they need to be well suited or structurally suitable to perform their functions. Okay, so as xylem, there's certain parts of the xylem, or there's characteristics of the xylem that makes it suitable to transport water from the roots to the aerial parts of the plants. Okay, number one, the upper and lower walls of the wood vessel segments. If you haven't done the transport system, I will be sending notes on the transport system. So there you will see or get, I'll include structural representations of what I'm talking about on the notes. Okay, so the upper and lower walls of the wood vessel segments are perforated. This means that no transverse walls can hinder water movement. The upper and lower walls of the wood vessel segments are perforated. This means no transverse walls can hinder water movement. Okay, and the wood vessel segments and the tracheids are connected end to end to form continuous tubes. It needs to be a continuous tube in order for the water to be successful in its mission, or in order for the xylem to be successful in its mission to send the water upwards. So, and also the wood vessel segments have no living cell contents. Okay, so the cells in the wood vessel are dead, they are not living. Okay, this means that nothing can interfere with water movement. Nothing in the cell, nothing about the cell at all can interfere with the water movement. Because then if they were living, then there was going to be a need for some of this water into those cells. So the fact that the cells are dead is an advantage because they will not interfere with water movement. Again, the walls of the wood vessels and tracheids are strengthened by lignin. Okay, otherwise they will collapse. Without this lignin, they will collapse. Again, the vessels are rounded in cross section. And this is a strong construction that makes sure that they do not collapse. Okay, they do not collapse under the strong pressures caused by the sucking force of transpiration. Remember, a force is a push or pull, so it's a bit harsh when it happens. So the construction needs to be strong to prevent any form of collapse. Okay, and then the pits allow lateral transport, making sure that water can be evenly distributed. Right? Our time is almost up. Okay, we will give you some time to send questions. Any question that you might have on the topic, please send it. Although I won't be able to answer them now, Due to time constraints, I will send you answers via email in the next couple of days. And if we have time in next week lesson, I'll try to answer some of those questions as well. Okay, so but I'll send you your answers via email. And if time allows next week, we will go through the questions in next week's lesson. Okay, thank you guys for your time. I hope I was able to impart some knowledge in this topic. Okay, this term, your topics for this term are animal tissue, organs, plant organs, particularly the leaf, and support system in plants, transport system in plants, as well as support system in animals. I'll repeat that again. This term, you need to do animal tissue. You need to look at indigenous knowledge systems and biotechnology. You need to look at support and transport system in plants. You need to look at the leaf as an organ, and you need to look at the support system in animals. Okay, you will do transport system in animals next term, but it can differ from one curriculum to another. Okay, so just consult with your curriculum provider. Okay, but as far as I know, those are the topics that you will be doing this term. Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment to download the handouts. If you have questions or if you have any questions, please send them through now. We still have about 2 minutes. Okay, Ronan, battling with Xylem and why it is suitable. Okay, I will send you answers on that. Right, thank you guys for joining me today. I will see you next week again. Enjoy the rest of your day.